Hello everyone, I am Grandmaster Priyadharshan Kannappan from Chess Gyaan Academy, and this is 21 Gems of Chess video that is brought to you by Chess Gyaan and FollowChess app. And in this 21 Gems of Chess, what we bring to you is a daily coverage of 21 great players from the past who had the potential but fell short of becoming a world champion. And now we are on the 8th day of 21-day series. Time flies very fast. We have talked about different grandmasters so far, like Pavlovich, Reshavsky, Geller, Stein, and so on. And today, the player whose game we are going to study in depth is Grandmaster David Bronstein. So first, let's quickly understand who David Bronstein was. So David Bronstein was a USSR grandmaster, and then later on, a Russian grandmaster, and he, very narrowly missed becoming a world chess champion in 1951. And Bronstein was considered to be one of the strongest players from the mid 1940s to mid 1970s. And the book that he wrote, which is called the Zurich International Chess Tournament 1953, is considered as one of the greatest chess books to have ever been written. So in this game, we are going to be seeing, this game was played in 1947. So this kind of correlates to the time frame where I mentioned was one of his peak chess career times. This game was played in 1947, and the opponent for David Bronstein playing the white pieces, and his opponent with black pieces was Grandmaster Vladimir Simagin, another reputed and well-respected grandmaster from USSR. So let's jump into the game and see how the game was played out. So white started out with e4, e5, knight f3, knight c6, bishop b5, Rilopus we have on the board. Black goes a6, bishop a4, and d6. So what we see here is the deferred steenitz, and this is considered to be a solid opening but slightly passive. And you must keep in mind this was played in 1947, when still the majority of the chess understanding was the center has to be solid for black. That is why there was a lot of popularity for setups like Philidor on move 2 going d6, keeping the center like passive but keeping it under control, or playing moves like bishop b5, a6, bishop a4, d6, and the Rilopus. So not a big surprise, because these kind of systems were very popular back in those days. And here white certainly have few options to play. In the game, white played c3, which is also the most popular move. White could also have started with short castling, and then for bishop d7 goes c3, and this could possibly transpose into the game. And another option for white, which is more leads to a kind of a different pawn structure, would have been to play fifth move, bishop takes c6, and after b takes c6 goes d4. So here black has two options. One is to play f6, keep the center solid, or another is to play e takes d4, knight takes d4. And in my opinion, white gets a plus equal positions. There was quite a few games which continue with like c5, knight c6, queen c7, knight a5, and then at some point white will try to go some sort of c4, knight c3, and have a firm grip on the light squares. So this is a plus equals position for white. In the game, white decided to go c3, and black replied with bishop d7. But here black has an incredibly sharp and tactical variation, which is f5. So this kind of breaks a lot of opening principles. I mean, you're pushing upon your king is still in the center, you're neglecting development and so on. But as I mentioned, this variation works only due to some tactical reasons, but positionally it's just a very bad move. So white can play e takes f5, bishop takes f5, short castle. Black has to go bishop d3. If not, white will just go d4. So bishop d3 stopping the d4 pawn push. White goes rook e1, bishop e7, and here there are quite a few options for white, like rook e3 is one move, bishop c2 has been played quite often, but in my opinion the most challenging move is queen b3. The point being, if rook b8 or b5, something like that, white has queen d5, and black's bishop is under some threat. And in case something like e4 is played, I think white can go bishop b3, and then threaten queen f7 followed by bishop e6. So if black goes knight e6, white can give up an exchange sack on e4 with rook takes e4, bishop e4, queen e4, and claim a lot of compensation or more than enough compensation, because d4 is going to come and it's going to be a big problem where the king is going to safely hide. So this is what would have happened with black goes f5. So f5 is certainly a move that you can try, time to time if you have the black pieces, but very risky, and you should be knowing what you are doing if you want to play fifth move f5. In the game, black decided to play the more solid move, which is bishop to d7, and white short castled. So a normal or the most popular idea for black to develop would be to go g6 and then follow it up with bishop g7 and put the knight on f6. And there are quite a few, quite a few, there's actually a lot of strong players who have played this particular setup, with most importantly players like Mamadiyarov, and few times even Magnus has played it with black. So, and I believe Nigel Short has also played it quite a few times, if I'm not mistaken, this setup with black. So in g6 would have been the logical or the most popular move. Instead, black decides to go knight g7, which is strategically kind of dubious because the knight is blocking the bishop from developing, and if you wanted to go g6 bishop g7, it would have been better first to go g6 bishop g7 and keep the option of putting the knight on e7 or f6 open. So for knight g7, white goes d4 and black goes knight g6. This is the idea by black to keep the center still stably under control, but the problem is black has spent two tempos in and back to back, and still he's yet to develop so many pieces. Comparatively, white has a stronger center and very easy way to develop his remaining undeveloped pieces. So this is kind of a critical tabia position in my opinion, and white has bunch of different ways to play for an edge here. So one option is, let's say, d5, and if knight b8 goes c4 and just go for a space advantage. So if black goes bishop e7, white continues developing, knight c3 short castle, bishop takes d7, knight d7, and importantly g3, a very positional move. The point being, white takes away this square f4 from the knight, and also is kind of threatening h4 h5, and also possibly king g2. So if black goes something like f5, white can play ef5, rook f5, and even consider moves like knight e4 and have a firm grip on the light squares by going king g2 and so on. So this is would give white a edge, I mean a token edge, even if it is edge, but it's a token edge. But certainly it's more because the white pieces are slightly more playing a critical role compared to black's minor pieces, which are passive. So this is if 8th move d5 was played. In the game, white played knight bd2, but the other options other than d5 would be bishop e3 and then bishop e7, then go knight bd2, short castle, d5, knight b8, and so on. Standard, plus equals position, and knight bd2 was played in the game. In case if rook e1 is played, it would just transpose as after bishop e7, knight bd2. So let's get back into the game, and as white played knight bd2, black went bishop e7, rook e1, short castling. And here I think white should have played h3 so that he keeps this bishop under check, because the bishop would have no good square. And then after h3, if black tries something to exchange the bishop, let's say knight b8 or knight a7, even though he would not do it right away, then white can just pull the bishop back to c2. And the question becomes, what are you going to do with this bishop on d7, which would be very passive. Instead, white decided to play knight f1, and here black has this incredible option or a variation, and this is also kind of related to the previous most alternative that is suggested as h3. Because white did not go h3, black should go bishop g4 here. And the point here is, if white plays bishop takes c6 trying to ruin the black's pawn structure, I would suggest the viewers watching the video pause for maybe 2-3 minutes, calculate as much variation as you can from here, and see like how black can get equality or a close to equality position in this, and then play through the video. So let's continue with the move that black would play after bishop takes c6. If black plays the most natural move like something like b takes c6, I don't think white has to worry about anything. White will just go knight e3 and get a plus equals position. But black has a fantastic move, which is knight h4. The point being, if bishop takes b7, black has bishop takes f3, g takes f3, and queen d7. So the queen is threatening to come to h3 and then kind of checkmate. So let's say if white goes king h1, black will play queen h3, and if white goes knight e3 stopping the mate on g2, black will play knight takes f3, and white has to go back knight f1, and black can force a draw with knight h4, knight e3, knight f3. So this is what would happen if white plays 12th move, bishop takes b7. But let's say if white does not take bishop takes b7, but white goes something like knight 1 d2, then we are following the game between two grandmasters, Evgeny Alexiev and Susan Magranto from Moscow 2015, and that game continued with b takes c6, h3, knight takes f3, knight takes f3, bishop f3, queen f3, bishop f6. The game continued for quite a few more moves, but I feel already black has really not much to worry. Even though the doubled pawn could be a cause of concern, but in return for the doubled pawn, black gets amazing access to the b file from where he can put a lot of pressure. So pretty equalish position in my opinion. So this would have been the best try for black, and black would have equalized by playing 10th move bishop g4, but instead black went with knight h4, and it technically makes sense why black would want to go knight h4, because the point of knight h4 is black wants to exchange minor pieces, and when more minor pieces get exchanged, the space problem, the lack of space problem would slowly disappear. That is the point of knight h4. But if you think a bit more deeper, maybe a few moves before, you would realize that the lack of space was a problem self-inflicted by black. So he's trying to find the solution, but this is not the right solution by going knight h4, because because when he had a better solution as bishop g4, why should black go knight h4? But after knight h4, white decided to play knight takes h4, bishop h4, and here white has bunch of options, and certainly the move that was played in the game is not the best according to me. So white should have either continued bishop e3 here or gone knight e3 with an idea to go knight d5. For example, a sample variation would be something like bishop g5, knight d5, bishop c1, rook takes c1, and white has a slight edge due to better control of the center and a strong knight on d5. So a symbolic edge, but certainly white is kind of putting some pressure on the black's position. So instead of all this, white in the game decided to play d e5. The problem I have with this move is that it kind of releases some central tension in my opinion, and also gives black more breathing space. An important point to note is that 12th move d takes e5 is actually the first new move or novelty in this game. So up to this point there have been previous existing games, and then I think those games either continued bishop e3 or knight e3. So d takes e5 was a novelty in 1947, and this is if you have been following our series for the previous week or so, it would be a bit surprising for you, because in the previous week, or even I think the yesterday's game where we were analyzing, the novelty came in as early as move 5. So this is kind of one of those first games where we have the novelty after, or new move after move 10 coming up on the board. So as you can see, that does mean this theory was already kind of bit developed back even in 1947. So for d takes e5, black has two captures, and it's kind of decision time. Both has its own unique characteristics. Either you can capture with the d pawn or with the knight, and in the game black captured with d takes e5, but I personally feel knight takes e5 would have been a better capture for black. The point here is black is now inviting white to trade another set of minor pieces, and again, more the minor pieces traded, the space problem that black has would reduce. So that's the reason why I like knight takes e5. And if bishop takes d7, black again has two options to exchange, either queen takes d7 or knight takes d7. Let's see, if queen takes d7, white will play g3, and if bishop f6, white will go king g2. And again, I like white's chances a bit, because white has some ideas like knight e3 f4 that can come up quickly on the board, or knight e3 followed by knight d5 and so on. So strong control of the d5 square gives white a slight edge. So on the 13th move, instead of queen takes d7, black has an option to play knight takes d7, and again I think white would play g3, and if bishop f6, white can go something like a4, trying to gain space on the both sides of the board and have a slight edge position. So this is the continuation that we saw if black went 12th move, knight takes e5, capturing the pawn with a knight. But in the game, black captured d takes e5, which is slightly dubious. And here white has some options like queen h5, or as in played in the game, like knight e3. So let's see the game continuation, which is knight e3, and black goes bishop e6. So big decision time in my opinion. What are we going to do with this queen? Are we going to exchange it on d8, or are we going to put it on c2, or are we going to play queen e2, or queen f3, queen h5, so many options, or we just leave the queen as it is and do our own work, or maybe even go something like knight d5 or knight f5. We have so many different options with the queen, and also even maybe just ignoring the queen and making some other decision. So first let's look at the most kind of forcing move, which is exchanging of queens. What happens if queen takes d8? It's a mistake, because black will play rook takes rook f d8 and black gets control of this d file. So white really has nothing to say as an advantage in this particular position. So for queen, instead of queen takes d8, the other option is, let's say, queen h5. This is more interesting, because now you're kind of putting some pressure on h4. Maybe you have some knight f5 ideas. At some point you're threatening bishop takes c6 and take the pawn on e5 and so on. And for queen h5, black can respond with queen g5, queen takes g5, bishop takes g5, and if knight d5, black has bishop takes c1, rook takes c1, b5, bishop b3, rook a7. And this pawn, which was under threat, is now defended by the rook on a7. So white can go rook a d1, and white certainly can claim a plus equals, because these pawns are kind of weak compared to white's pawns, and this knight is just too strong on d5. So this is if queen h5. So this is one interesting variation. And another option for white, let's say, is queen c2, but this, in my opinion, is kind of dubious, because why would you want to put the queen on c2? Because it's kind of only defending the e4 pawn, but the e4 pawn is not really under any pressure right now. And it would, I think, make more sense if you want to do something like queen c2. It's better to go queen e2, because after queen e2, your idea would be to go bishop c2 and then go knight f5 and so on. And then here your queen at least is not occupying the c2 square, so that the bishop on a4 can drop back to c2 and so on. So the two main continuations for for white, and the alternative is queen e2 or queen h5. The third alternative, which was played in the game, which is also interesting, is queen to f3. So for queen f3, black goes queen f6. So again, the same question, should white swap the queens? Again, the answer is no. White should not swap the queens, because if we swap the queens with queen takes f6, bishop takes f6, knight d5, black can play bishop takes d5, e takes d5, and go knight a5. So the point of knight a5 is that he's stopping now c4 and also bishop b3 coming, which means the d5 pawn cannot be really easily supported. So in case of white goes something like f4, black can play e takes f4, bishop takes f4, and go rook a d8. And now black is threatening to capture on d5 if white plays something like bishop takes c7. So black has more or less equalized in this particular position. If something like rook d1, black can consider playing moves like knight c4, because knight b2 is a threat, and then both the rook and bishop would be under attack. So this is what would happen if 15th move, if white plays queen takes f6. So white's best option maybe would have been knight f5 here. So here, if black goes bishop g5, white can play bishop takes g5, queen takes g5, and go rook a d1. So instead of rook a d1, which is the most natural move, if white tried something like h4, queen f6, then in my opinion this is an unclear position, not really favoring any side. And another option is, let's say, if bishop takes c6, b takes c6, queen e3 was played, queen takes e3, white has a very interesting intermediate move, knight e7 check, king h8, rook e3. But the problem with this position is, even though black has a terrible pawn structure, is that black should be able to hold the position, because black will get somewhere c5 or rook b8 threatening rook takes b2 and so on. Black should be able to defend. And the point to note is also the knight on e7 is kind of precariously placed. It may possibly get trapped. So this would be an unclear position, the position that we have on the board. So this would have been an option, would have happened if white had played 17th move, bishop c6. Instead, another alternative for white is to go rook a d1 and claim a slight edge position. So in the game, after 14th move, queen f6, when black invited white to trade the queens, white decided to not do it, and white went queen e2, which I'm not too happy about, but okay, white decided to go queen e2. So black goes knight e7, rook f1. So the idea of rook f1 is that now, before rook f1, if you notice, there was some pressure on this f2 pawn, which did not allow white to play moves like knight g4 even if he wanted. So by going rook f1, white reduces the pressure on the f2 pawn. So now the knight g4 kind of ideas are real, and so that's what actually happened in the game too. Black went bishop g5, knight g4, bishop takes g4, queen takes g4, bishop takes c1, rook a c1. So a mass minor piece exchange has happened. We are left with only one set of minor piece for both white and black. It's a bishop and knight, but we have all the major pieces, two rooks, queens on the board. Very symmetrical pawn structure with very minor changes, like white has pawn on c3, black has pawn on a6. That's the only kind of pawn formation change, but the structure remains the same. So these kind of positions are, in my opinion, pretty fascinating to analyze, because the stronger players generally tend to outplay the less experienced or the weaker players from these positions way often, and this is one such game in my opinion. And you would be very surprised if I say that we are right now on move 19, and in like 13 moves from now, black had a losing position, just lost in just 13 moves from here. That is a very fascinating thing to even think about, that black can lose from a solid position like this in just 13 moves. So black goes rook a d8. That's what anyone would do. I mean, trying to fight for the only open file on the board. That's the d file. And white goes rook c d1, challenging black on the d file, and black goes knight c8. I'm starting to have some reservations with this kind of move with like knight c8, but it's still not, I would mark as a mistake or anything. It's kind of running too close to danger is kind of what I would say with a move like knight c8. So white correctly pulls back the bishop to b3, and a point to notice, he puts it on b3 and not on c2, because c2 would be very passive. Compared to b3, here it's on an active diagonal. It's putting some pressure on the f7 pawn. The king will feel a bit unsecure, and also at the right moment maybe you can go some sort of bishop d5 if needed. So overall bishop b3 is a way more active square to be. And here, if you are playing the black pieces, I would strongly suggest you to pause the video, come up with some good plans, and then continue watching this video, because I feel like in this particular position black made a wrong plan, and that was the primary reason why he ended up in a very worse position and ended up losing in around 10 moves from now. So if black has the right plan in this particular position, I feel black should be able to equalize completely and be able to hold a draw. So black went queen g6, and that is a dubious move in my opinion. Instead, black should have played g6. So what does g6 do? One, it clears back rank. That's very self-explanatory. But more importantly than that, I feel like black is just going to go king g7 and get away from the pin. And that would be very critical, because in the future, maybe when if the black queen moves away from f6, then you can kind of move the f pawn, forward f6 or something like that. And for g6, if white goes something like rook d7, black has h5, queen h3, knight d6, rook takes c7, knight takes e4, rook takes b7, knight c5, and if rook a7, black can play knight takes b3, a takes b3, rook d2, and black should have enough compensation and most likely would get back the one pawn that he has sacrificed, because these two pawns are kind of clearly weak, and the white's king is also kind of still having to figure out how to resolve his back rank issues. So this is what black should have played on 21st move g6, but instead black went queen g6. For two reasons I find this move to be wrong. One, there was no need to exchange queens, and another is once you exchange the queens, you're going into rook and bishop versus rook and knight endgame. So generally rook and bishop versus rook and knight tends to favor the side with the bishop. So that's another reason why I don't like queen g6. So for queen g6, white correctly exchanges queen takes g6, h takes g6, and if you're playing the white pieces, would suggest you to maybe do a quick think and try to find the best move for white. And it's a very positional and nuanced move in my opinion, and that move is 23rd move of playing h4. So h4 with a single move just restricts the activity of the g6 pawn from going g5, and also it kind of puts pressure on the f7 pawn. So for h4, if black goes something like knight b6, let's say, white can play rook takes d8, rook takes d8, and go f4. And if he takes f4, rook takes f4, and as I earlier mentioned, there's going to be pressure on this pawn, and if rook d7 goes something like e5. And certainly black needs to be extra careful to not get into a very worse position from here on. So this is 23rd move h4, and black went rook d6, which is a mistake, because white now responded with f4. So e takes f4 and then e5. Rook takes d1, rook takes d1. So now white has forced black and has managed to get control of the open d file. A variation that I would like to add maybe is, let's say, in case of something like rook d8 was played, rook going back, then white can certainly play rook takes d8, rook takes d8, and go rook takes f4. The point being, if rook d7 is played, white will just have e6, a very strong move in my opinion, and black is going to be in big risk because he's going to lose material or a pawn at least. So that is why on 25th move for e5, black did not go rook d8, but instead black played rook takes d1, rook takes d1, and black went knight b6. So here white played c4, in the best move in my opinion, and black here made a big tactical blunder, and after which the game was just lost. So the best try for black would have been to possibly go c5, allowing rook d6, and then after knight c8 go rook d7. Clearly a very active rook, kind of passive pieces, and white will be able to pick up this pawn. These are all weaknesses, but still black has some hope of drawing here in my opinion. But in the game what happened is black played a5, which is a mistake because black, I think, missed white's 29th move completely. And so if you're watching the video, would again suggest you to pause the video and try to find what that 29th move could be. So right now a5 was the 27th move, so if you can find the variations that arise from 29th move, and then if you proceed with the video, I think you would learn a very important tactical and also a kind of a calculation lesson in my opinion. So white obviously would play c5, a4, and the move that Simagin missed was e6, just amazingly good move. The point of it being, if e8 takes b3 is played, white will play e7, and if rook e8 you have rook d8, and unfortunately white black cannot do anything here, and most likely the pawn will just end up promoting to a queen on e7. So this is if 29th move a takes b3. In case if black plays something like f takes e6, then you just play bishop e6 with a check, and then when the king moves to h7, then you just win the knight. So white ends up with an extra piece. So this is also not a great variation for black. So for e6, which was, I believe, completely unexpected for black, black went knight c8, which, so he's trying to kind of save something. But after e takes f7, king h8 or king h7, king h7 would have been a variation, but king h8 was played in the game. White simply goes bishop c4, and after b5, white goes bishop e6, and black goes g5, and white goes rook d7, and all of a sudden, not all of a sudden, but kind of happened over a period of time, this knight rook has no good squares. White is threatening rook takes c7 and trapping the knight, and this pawn is so advanced, black has no hope to even possibly draw this game. So seeing all this, that how bad his position was, in Vladimir Simagin decided to resign here. So this was a game which kind of started out kind of slow and solid. White had a slight edge, but black was passive but solid enough. And the moment the queens got exchanged is where, in my opinion, the learning really, a lot of learning happened in this game. The last, like 9 to 10 moves, the way white started with h4, fixing the g6, and then going with f4, and then going e5. So if someone told you endgames are boring or you don't need to calculate much in endgames, maybe this is one good example that you can show to them to see how exciting and calculative endgames can be. Because certainly all these moves with the h4 was not just pure intuition, but also was combined with some sort of calculation. And certainly the most brilliant calculative effort was to go e6 on move 29, after which black is just clearly lost. So that's what is today's game. Today's game we saw between Grandmaster David Bronstein and Grandmaster Vladimir Simagin from Moscow 1947. So I am Grandmaster Priyadharshan Kannappan from Chess Gyaan Academy, and this video is brought to you in a partnership with FollowChess app, where the topic is called the 21 Gems of Chess, where we analyze one game of a legendary player every day, and the player is someone who was very, very close to qualifying for the world championship or becoming a world champion. I mean, in the case of Bronstein, he did play for the world championship title, but he did not manage to win it. So these are games about players who had the talent but maybe fell short slightly from becoming world champion. So this is day 8 of our coverage. And in case if you're interested in watching the previous day coverages, I would suggest you to go and check the YouTube channel link of Chess Gyaan, as all the videos are uploaded there of the previous sessions and of the previous grandmasters. So everyone, if you are interested in watching those videos, you can go ahead and watch it in the Chess Gyaan YouTube channel. If you want to watch it with PGN, watch it in the FollowChess app, because that's where the PGN and the chessboard was synced with the video. So that's all from me, Grandmaster Priyadharshan, today. So everyone, stay home, stay safe, and the hopefully you're all, like all the chess players are having fun during the lockdown, playing our favorite game and learning our favorite game. So bye bye everyone, I'll see you all with a different grandmaster's legendary game tomorrow. Bye.